My condolences to Yolanda Holmes' family and friends. This was a tragedy that should have never happened. I am going to do my keyboard psychological analysis on Qawmane Wilson. Hey, I have $100,000 in student loans, so let me be. Chicago, Illinois. Why did Qawmane Wilson have this need? This need to be more than who he was. This need to want so much attention. That the need was so intense that his mother had to die. This could be known as a histrionic personality disorder. One who wants to be the center of attention at any cost, any level, at any time. Always. As far back as high school, he had this trait. Kwame would come to school dressed in designer clothing jewelry, always had a little bit more money on him than average kids in the neighborhood. Classmates of Kwame said, and they described him as, he was cool, he was funny, he was full of himself, he was spoiled, he was always dancing, he wanted attention, he wanted to be famous, he wanted to be famous. Now, I'm not sure if this is a medical terminology, but the urban terminology is called a fame whore, wanting to be a famous person at any cost. Usually women are guilty of this type of behavior, but as we see more and more, males are being privy to this type of behavior as well. Kwame was lucky. He was fortunate. Some would say he was blessed. He would often brag on how rich his mother was and what she had. Who was Kwame's mother? Her name was Yolanda Holmes. She was 45. She resided in Chicago at the Wilson Yard Apartments, owned and operated the Nappy Head's popular hair salon that's been in operation for over 16 years. Yolanda lavished herself with nice things, and she enjoyed going on vacations and trips, but why not? She earned it. She wasn't a selfish woman either. This kind-hearted woman gave back to the community she came from. She held back-to-school parties at the salon so students could get their school supplies to return back to school. She gave to local churches, and she would help anyone in need. Her family and friends say she was always there for them, someone you can talk to, confide in, a listening ear. She was worried about her only child, but what true mother doesn't worry about their children? She was such a successful businesswoman, she managed to put aside a little nesting egg of $90,000. She also was wise-minded to put insurance policies, 2 of them, totaling over $300,000. Now, I heard it was more, but I went with that number. She would leave it to her son to make sure, even in her death, that he was taken care of. She often said that she didn't want, quote, the streets of Chicago to swallow him up, unquote. I guess the streets of Chicago may have swallowed up his father. Who was Kwame's father? His father is Jeffrey Todd Wilson, the reputed West Side gang leader of the Black Disciples. He would set the fire that caused 2 crack house workers to die. The drug dealer refused to pay the $1,000 a month street tax, so he torched the place. He would be arrested in 1993 for that crime, where he is currently incarcerated to this day. So the father was not in Kwame's life on a whole. It would be his mother who would raise him as a single mother. But I'm sure he knew about his father. I even am sure that he probably held his father, in a sense, in a high regards. You have to understand that even though the father wasn't in the home, genetics will be overwhelming. Now, there are 99 reasons why a mother might spoil her child. Maybe she didn't have these things growing up and she wanted to make sure her child did. Maybe she's even trying to make up something lacking in her child's life. Or maybe she just has it to give and she feels her child is deserving of it. It's okay to spoil your child a little. But what happens when a spoiled child becomes an entitled child? By now, in 2012, Qawmane, who's now 23, had incorporated himself into Young QC. His mother brought him a Ford Mustang. She gave him money. She helped him apply for jobs. And by her standing in the community, at that point, he would land a job. But that wasn't enough. I guess him asking for anything and getting it was becoming a bit boring. He was tired of asking for it. This is where he gravitated from spoiled to entitled. Did she tell him, seek employment and pay for your gas and car insurance yourself since I brought the car? Did she tell him, pay for your children that you have, buy them Pampers and milk? It said that she did know about one of her grandchildren. But of course, since this case went public, it said that he may have other kids. Up to 7 the last time I looked into it. That may be his. Mama's baby, daddy's maybe, so who knows? I'm saying, did she say no to him? By this time, Qawmane was displaying traits of having an antisocial personality disorder, a disregard from right from wrong, and expressing signs of a sociopath, a lack of conscience. With these two traits, he was able to manipulate the ones around him into doing whatever he asked. It stayed on his mind. After all, it was his money. His mother wanted him to have it. Why should it be a stipulation he had to wait until she died? She had just gave it to him. She'd still be living. In a sense, it was kind of her fault. She had this money dangling in his face, and he needed it now. Yolanda Holmes needed to die. Genetics of his father. Qawmane offered $3,500 to Eugene Spencer, he was 22 at the time, to kill his mother. Now, it's been said that Spencer, out of his own mouth, was only paid $70. He also asked his girlfriend, Lorena Johnson, 23, would she provide the transportation and be the lookout? Of course she said yes. But she did say it was only supposed to be a robbery. She said she didn't know of any murder, but it's kind of hard to believe anybody involved in something like this. The deadly plan would set into motion September 2nd, 2012, around 4 a.m. Johnson would drive Spencer to 1026 West Montrose Avenue. Phone and court records would show constant contact with Qawmane and his two cronies. In early reports, Qawmane called his mother and told her that he had forgotten her key. Now, Qawmane didn't know that his mother was not alone. Her on-again boyfriend had stayed the night. So after months of them not being together, the on and off again boyfriend was there. When she opened the door, it was Eugene Spencer that would repeatedly stab the 5-foot defenseless woman and leave her for dead. Now, he would call Qawmane and tell him that the job was complete. He wanted to know, was his mother dead? He replied he thinks so, but Kwame insisted he make sure that she was dead. So that's when Spencer went back in and he shot Yolanda Holmes in her head. At this point, the boyfriend would hear the gunshots and he would spring into action. Him and the intruder would get into a tussling match. Now, it's being said that Spencer had pistol whipped him, and it also is being said that the gun was left at the scene, but they were in a scuffle, and Eugene would endlessly end up running into the night. So after the hitman fled, that's when the $70 hit was complete. Speculations would start as to who killed this kind-hearted, caring salon owner. Oh, the stories you heard. What the people would say about Yolanda, about her family, about Qawmane. The stories. Qawmane attended his mother's funeral. Family said he was acting peculiar. He didn't cry. He was very standoffish. But people grieve in many ways. There's actually footage of Qawmane during a news report of a 15-year-old girl that had died from gunshots. And he actually said his mother had died. And he said he described his mom as a neighborhood woman that was murdered because somebody entered her house just to steal, is what he said. Actually, footage of that. And they say that's the only time he's ever spoken on the tragedy of his mother. The family thought at the funeral Qawmane was grieving this way because him and his mother were extremely close, and he was probably taking his mother's murder hard. But it's hard to grieve when you are a narcissist, which is a trait commonly found in men. They are one of self-importance commonly found in this trait, and it's also an environmental factor that make them this way. His family said he stayed outside, and when he did come in, he was in the back. He stayed away from the coffin. But I can tell you one place that he didn't stay away from, and that was inside her bank accounts. Qawmane would withdraw $70,000 almost immediately. He started spending his inheritance. At first, it was very alarming. But the documented footage all over the internet, you saw him buying clothes and drugs and guns and hybrid dogs and customizing his Camaro that his mother had brought him, his recording career, his acting career, women, and his newfound entourage. He actually has footage of him going inside a Chase bank with his entourage, where he withdrew $20,000 from the bank, and he went to a random parking lot where quote-unquote fans were, and he threw it all up in the air, his mother's money, and he actually said he was giving back to the community. Genetics of his mother and her money. He would leave his little footprint all over social media. He was tweaking, and he was high, and he was frosted, and he was flossing, and he was hip rolling, and he was annoying, but he was everywhere. He was everything that he wanted to be, and it just cost his mother's life. I always wonder, did he ever grieve? But I think I answered my own questions. The family felt like they were losing hope. They did not want this to go an unsolved Chicago crime like so many. The detective had only gotten contact with them once, and that was the day of the tragedy. The more money Qawmane spent and the more time passed, the less hope that they had watching their family. Must have been upsetting for 6 entire years watching their family without a care in the world. By this time, the 5'3" menace, one who inflicts harm, would finally be arrested and his cronies within hours of each other. It would all make sense now. Or would it? Even in jail for 6 years, he seemed unbothered. Jailhouse selfies found its way on social media. Women and girls and fans writing him. Young QC wanted everyone to know that he was all right. This was becoming a social psychological phenomenon. People are less likely to take responsibilities for their actions. And believe it or not, there's going to be so many more crimes similar to this. It has been since Yolanda's death, and it's going to be plenty more. It would take over 6 years until loved ones who love this woman would finally get justice. Lorena Johnson, now around 28 or 29, should thank her lucky stars. She was sentenced to 14 years and got out at the end of December of 2020 with time served. Eugene Spencer, who is now 27, 28, he will be serving 99 years before he is eligible for parole. So in other words, he will die in there. Now Qawmane, who is 28, young QC, he received 99 years as well for the mastermind behind this heinous crime. Qawmane, I wholeheartedly believe, is a narcissist, an inflated sense of one's self-importance. Now, there are many traits of narcissism, but here are 3. They feel that they are special and unique, more than anybody else. They have fantasies of unlimited success that they will try to pursue, and unlimited power. So with that, you feel you can probably get away with anything. Before the judge handed down the sentence, he asked Qawmane if he wanted to say anything. He says, quote, "I just want to say nobody loved my mother more than me. She was all I had. That's it." Unquote. Funny. And then you had her murdered